I've been using THINX period panties for about 4, almost 5 years now. I absolutely love that. First and foremost, because I'm not wasting money and gas going to the store to get pads, and I wasn't really a tampon user. I used them very rarely, so that's my biggest thing. Secondly, the way that pads feel, like you're always reminded it's there because you can feel it. I felt like I had a diaper on. I felt like everyone knew I was on my cycle because they bulged, because I'm a heavy bleeder. That's another good thing that you need to know. The third thing is they're great for the environment. And of course, along with saving money, I'm not ruining any clothes. I'm not ruining underwear. I'm not really ruining my clothes because of the leakage, nothing. It's free bleed and it's so amazing. No one would know I'm on my cycle unless I tell them. There's no odor, there's no leakage, and they're wonderful. And if you would like to try them out, $10 off using my link, and there is a money back guarantee if it doesn't work out for you. You can do that as well. But I promise if you try it, you'll fall in love with it. And there's a lot of other options out there. As a matter of fact, THINX even has other options that you can check out. Check out the website, shethinks.com/Renee, RENEE. Bye. Hi, I'm Dr. Renee. This is my lovely younger sister, Chef Alicia Nicole. You see how little she is too, right? I'm also allergic to chocolate. Don't let it burn.
It's much thicker.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hi, Dr. Renee.
Hello. Welcome, everyone, to the Ask Dr. Renee show. If you've never watched the show before, this show is here to motivate and inspire you to live the life you deserve. Because let's face it, this is not a dress rehearsal. This is the only one we got. So you might as well do it right now because you don't get another chance. So first, I have to say everyone needs to share the broadcast. Please share on whatever platform you're watching. Let me warn you, if you are watching on LinkedIn, I will not see your comments. So not in real time. I'll see them after the fact. So if you would like to say anything, ask a question or anything, make sure you hop on over to YouTube. And it's my YouTube channel, Ask Dr. Renee. Hop on over to YouTube and watch us over there. But thank you, everyone that is watching. And if you're watching the replay, do me a favor, write and type #replay. I greatly appreciate you. The video will live forever on YouTube and will not stay on any of the other platforms in its entirety. So if you want to see the whole thing, then you're going to have to come on over to YouTube. But so hopefully while I was doing my talking, my lovely guest was able to share to her people. And thank you so much again. And we've had some really amazing guests, and today's guest is just as amazing. If you guys didn't know, March is Women's Her Story Month, History Month, whatever you want to call it. And so we've been featuring women. And last week we had somebody from St. Louis, and coincidentally, today's guest is from St. Louis. But I'm so excited to have Winnie Elizabeth Thompson joining us today. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited. And yes, this is right on time. 314 day is Monday. That's March 14th. So, this is perfect timing.
Yes, and 313 day is tomorrow.
Okay, go ahead.
We rep the D.
Right.
So Winnie, I always ask everyone at the very beginning, what did you want to do when you were growing up? Like, what did you want to be when you said, when I grow up, what am I going to be?
So funny thing is, I always said that I would be a veterinarian because I've always loved animals. So I'm not a vet, but I do have a little bossy Shih Tzu here in the house. And coincidentally, I'm drinking coffee out of my dog mom cup. Even though I have 2 humans that I also take care of, but she was my first girl, so Roxy. But yeah, I always said I would be a vet. So I don't know. I still love animals, but not enough to work with them. and care for them, care for more than just mine. But yeah, and then I was also into fashion. So I've just always liked creative things.
Awesome sauce. So I forgot to put on my mic, and this is what happens when things are live. And so I had to just do a little switch up here. And one more thing, and I will be done. Okay. So my executive producer is going to text me in a minute and say, "What is wrong with you?" But so I knew I was going to forget to say something, you guys. If you watched, I had my little commercials at the beginning. THINX is having a flash sale. It ends tomorrow. There is a link in the YouTube video. You will get an extra $5 off, I think, in addition to 20%, something like that. Please click the link. I love THINX, in case you didn't hear, and that's that. So fashion and animals. Although you do, I'm sure you know that dog clothing and pet paraphernalia is actually like some billions of dollars business.
Yeah, I've seen, just with different reality TV stars, they come out with their brands and they make a buku of money. So, maybe that's where I need to be. Maybe that's the next interview.
I don't know. I was like, I didn't know. I watched Shark Tank, and I've seen, there's a franchise that's in Chicago that I guess they were on Shark Tank, and that's where they quoted that. I was like, I didn't know it was that much. Doggone it. But so when you got to high school, and now you really do have to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
What did you decide then?
So, funny story. When I was in high school, I graduated from North County Technical High School, which is one of those where you can kind of choose a trade that will set you up for life. And at the time, this is also a whole different industry that I am not in. But at the time, I decided to take up culinary arts because I've always loved to cook. So by trade, I do know, I'm very skilled in the culinary arena. I passed the certification test and all of that. But once it was time to go to college, I was like, you know what? I don't really want to fight over how strawberries are cut. So I'm just going to use this to my personal advantage and go to college for general studies until I really figure it out. And so I tried so many different things. I'm like the millennial. Like I tried so many different things. So, I tried interior design in school, and then I took a gap year. And then when I came back to school, I actually sat with my dean and I asked him to help me because I'm like, I can't keep just trying stuff. I need to, nail it. Yeah, I'm like, I think Sidney, my son, I think he was like 1 year old, maybe 2 years old at the time. And so I said, I need to figure this out. I got a kid to take care of. I'm trying to set up my future. And so he asked me, what do you like? And I told him all the things. And he said, okay, and what's like a commonality of those things? And I said, well, when I was going to school for culinary arts, I said I wanted to come out with a cookbook. When I was taking up classes for interior design, I wanted to come out with an interior design book. So he said, okay, well, you like to write? And I said, yeah, I've been writing poetry since I was like in the 6th grade. And he was like, okay, so why don't you go to school for communications? And nonetheless, that's what I decided to major in. I got my degree in corporate communications. And I realized when I was younger, I did try to run away from it because my mom has worked in media and communications most of my life. My brother they're both still in the communications industry. A lot of my family is actually, and I've tried to rebel against that for whatever reason. And here I am. So corporate communications, natural knack with PR, as you know. And I love it. I love it here. So that's really my story.
Wow. That's too funny.
Mm-hmm.
Too funny. And I honestly, I guess if I spoke to a dean, I don't think I even knew. I know I didn't know what public relations was. 2, I don't know that I knew it was something I could have majored in. So that's really cool that, yeah.
I didn't take it seriously. Like now that I look back, I'm like, I was literally in the middle of like, my mom was, she was the director of communications for the Missouri History Museum ever since I was a child. She was there forever. So I tease and I joke to my son and I would tell him that was my second house because I would go to work with her. And I would just walk around the museum. I would take a friend with me and I would give them a tour because I knew the museum, like the
Look
front
at
and back.
her, just a docent.
Uh-huh. Yes. And like, I would just give tours. I would go to spots where you weren't supposed to go because I was like, they know me, I can be in here, that's fine. And one of the best memories that I have of her working there is she helped to curate 1904 World's Fair like commemoration, the ice cream cone and all of that. So all of these vendors were there. People were coming in town. It was like this huge, elaborate event. And I was just walking around, introducing myself to people. I made my own business card. So it just had my name and my hobbies and what school I went to and what church we went to. So I was like,
The important thing.
I was like 8 years old networking, and it's just hilarious. So I wish I had like one of those cards to this day. I vaguely remember it being like a little girl silhouette, but it's literally like in my blood. So
Wow, that is too funny. I love it. I love it. So you mentioned Sydney. So when did Sydney come about?
I had Sidney when I was 17. So I had him when I was still in high school. Um, I am very grateful for my mother because I was terrified when I told her that I was pregnant, and the first response that she said was, "Come here, give me a hug." And I will never
Wow.
forget that. I was like terrified. So when she said that, it's just like all of the things came down. Now I knew, we were still going to have a conversation. We did have plenty of conversation. That I definitely learned from. But yeah, I had him when I was 17, and I'll say like I started, just really, I guess, getting my life on track in my early 20s, just kind of after hitting a couple bumps in the road. But yeah, I had him when I was 17.
Wow. But that is so I watched this crazy show. Have you heard of this show Unexpected?
Mm-mm.
It's on TLC, which it's on TLC. So and it's literally all these teen parents and they have their parents too, so they talk about
Mhm.
when they found out and how they found out, and then they go through and delivery and all this stuff, and so they follow the same families they've been following for a while, looks like. But I actually just watched them last night. This is my like nighttime thing before I go to bed now. It is so interesting, but it's interesting hearing the reactions of the parents. Like one mom, she had told the girl, "You get pregnant, you have to get out." And this mother she works night and day and night. She has two children though, this teenager and a little boy. And oh my God, I'm like, I don't know who babysits now because the girl said, the teenager always said that she was the babysitter. So she did put her out.
Mhm.
She wasn't joking, and so his parents have taken her in, the baby daddy, and, I'm like, "Oh my goodness," but yeah,
Yeah,
so
that
yeah,
was.
to hear that reaction is just like, that's such the opposite of what I've been watching.
Yeah, no, it was a priceless moment, and I'm very grateful. And like I even told her I was afraid that she would put me out, and she said, "Why would I kick my only daughter and my grandchild out? Like during the most important time of your life right now." So she didn't coddle me. And like I said, we definitely had some conversations that clearly, now for those watching, I have a 7-month-old. So I learned my lesson. For whatever reason, I waited like a whole nother 16 years to have another child. Um, but we had a very good conversation, and I'm grateful for her to this day. She, allowed me to still enjoy my teen years, what was the rest of it in early 20s. Um, I made sure I did graduate high school in time with no issues. So like even while I was pregnant, I figured out how to set myself up for homeschooling during maternity leave. So, I went to school as long as I could until I couldn't walk the halls anymore. And I returned, and was right on track. So it's
That's
possible.
wonderful. Oh, of course it is. My mentor had a child at 17, and she's a whole doctor. So, yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
It is possible. You just have to have the drive, which I know you have the drive to do any and everything because you have done some amazing things. So, so after you graduated college, you said you fought the corporate communications. So what did you do after college?
I worked in retail actually for a long time, which felt like I was in jail because, like, when you're in retail, you get thrown into the fire of all the things. So, you learn customer service, of course, like firsthand sales, probably a little bit of HR, just all the things that are in just about any career journey. But trying to get out of retail was so hard because, like, I always kind of had a dream of working at a hotel. It looked cute. I was like, I want to work at a hotel. I want to be like a front desk girl. And anytime I would apply, they would say, you're not qualified. And I'm like, I know I can handle it. If I can handle Black Friday, for 5 years, I can handle working front desk at a hotel. And I eventually did end up working for the Hilton brand. And it was so funny because originally they were not going to hire me. And they just said, looking at your resume, you don't seem qualified. And I said, okay, that's fine. And I sent a thank you letter. So that was one lesson that my mom taught me, was to send a letter. And I actually mailed it. So maybe that's like aging me a little bit. Like, I could have sent the email, but I didn't want to. So I mailed a thank you letter. Then I sent a follow-up email just to say, hey, I have something on the way for you, Miss So-and-so. And she called me after she received it. And she said, I have never received such a formal thank you letter. And with that, I'm creating a position for you. So I was able to work front desk. It was just during a different shift. And I got, front desk training. And of course, it came with travel perks. So then that allowed for me and Sidney to travel for very cheap, which was a great advantage. And then that helped me to scale and go into corporate America. Once I, started working in hospitality, it kind of helped set me up for the next trajectory.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, you never know. You never know. And I know a lot of people ask, well, what are we supposed to do after the interview? And, I was like, if you have an address, you mail the thank you card. If you don't, you have an email address, you send an email and say thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And I still tell people that to this day, because one of my side hustles that I can't seem to shake because people won't let me stop it, is doing like resume revisions for people. That was a way that I earned extra income when I was in college and shortly after college. And now, like 10 years later, I'm still revising resumes for people, even though I don't want to. So, but I always tell them, like, even if I'm just giving advice, I'll just say, hey, make sure that you send a thank you note to especially if that's a job that you really want, like you are passionate about working in that industry or for that company, because you never know. Like I said, a position was created for me, so you never know.
Yeah, exactly. So after Hilton, which sounds like so much fun, what'd you do?
I feel like I've lived so many lives because we're going through like my career history. So after that, I actually started working for a temp agency, which they'll land you at very random places. And I ended up working as a front desk secretary at a law firm. And I had like no legal background, but I'm like, okay, I can do front desk, admin things. And so I learned a lot about like Social Security and veterans benefits and all of that, because that was the firm that was their specialty where I worked. And I was there for I think a couple years. And that actually is like the last job that I had, I want to say, like in that lifetime. After I left that job, I left after Mike Brown was killed. And unfortunately, when I was at that firm, I feel like my eyes opened up because I realized I was the second Black person to only work in that firm. I was the youngest. There was only one Black attorney in the entire office. It was a Black woman, and I didn't necessarily like how they treated like their Black clients. Like, they took care of them, but I noticed that they were treated differently.
Different treatment. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like once Mike Brown was killed, we were living 10 minutes away from Ferguson at this time. We were actually living across the street from a police department. So talk about, PTSD, like you see this stuff on the news and then you're hearing fire, or not fire, but police sirens every day, and then just seeing the cops. So I held in a lot because I didn't feel comfortable talking to anybody about it. at the office. And then I just remember one day I decided, you know what, I'm going to ask if I can use a day off to go protest, because I didn't feel comfortable protesting at night because I knew I would have Sidney with me. And I couldn't protest during the day because I was at
You're at
work.
work.
But I was friends with a lot of frontline activists, just people protesting. Everyone here in St. Louis took time out of their day, to be supportive of that movement. And the moment that I walked up to my manager's office and I said, "Can I take time off to?" I just like burst into tears. Like I was just like, I was sobbing. Because I had held it in. I hadn't said anything
Right.
to anybody. And I'm raising a Black son at this time who's looking at me like he was only, 18 years old. Is that, like like how, it was just a lot to process. And so I'm like, before I could even get it out, I'm crying. And she said, "Oh, Winnie, I'm so sorry. Go ahead. Yes, take the day off." So I said, okay. And I went to protest and I met more people. And it just really lit a fire beneath me. And I think that was a moment that the entire country woke up and we're just like, wait a minute, like a lot of this stuff has been happening and it's not okay. I was used to driving through North County in Ferguson, and I knew exactly where to slow down because I knew where the cops would profile us. Like it was just a normal thing that shouldn't be normal. So I feel like a new side of Winnie was like reinvigorated at that time. And so shortly after that, I said, you know what, I don't feel comfortable at this firm. I know that you all don't value my personal core values. And so there were a couple comments that were made. Like one of the attorneys, he walked up to me as if I was not a Black girl. He walked up to me and he said, "Well, they didn't burn the McDonald's down because that's where they all work, huh?" And I said, and then he just walked away. And I'm like, are you serious? Did that just happen?
Was he colorblind?
I don't know. I was just like, did that just happen? And I said, okay. And then there was another situation. And this is where, like, I knew I was going to quit. Like, when you're about to quit a job, but you're just waiting for like the right moment. And I can laugh about it now, but the thing that kind of blew the top off was one of the a legal assistant. She walked in and I had my hair like in two braids, like my hair is natural, and it was just like in two big braids, kind of like that vintage crown look. And she walked in and she said, "You know who you look like? Oprah." I said, and then she just walked away. And I'm like, now the only time I've seen Oprah with her hair in two braids
was in the color purple.
Okay, let's talk about it. Okay. And I said, "So you saying I look like a slave?"
Right. You look like Miss Sophia? Like for real?
I was so lost for words, and I was upset, and I said something to the office manager about it, and she did not understand where I was coming from, and she didn't understand why I was offended. So there was no action taking place, like not even an apology. And I said, all right, and I put in my 2 weeks. I was like, okay, it's been so. It's time to go. And after that, I just really focused on my personal core values, which I knew at the time I was more passionate about community than I had ever been before. I just used all the skills that I took from retail to hospitality and even the things that I learned at that law firm to help set me up further. And so I just started volunteering with nonprofits. One of the nonprofits I started volunteering for, I'm actually their board chair now. So whoop whoop, there's that. And I'm excited to talk to you about what happened next after that, because
yes,
life started changing, once I really started to understand where my true passion was.
Yes, please go on. I'm
Yeah.
very excited. I'm very intrigued.
Yeah.
So first of all, your mother didn't scream and shout at you for quitting a job without having another one?
She did. She shouted. She yelled at me. My brother yelled at me. Nobody was supportive of that at all. Like, I'm a young single mother.
Right, exactly. Look, I can't do that, and I have no dependents. But
I'm like, no, they talked about my hair. Like, right. I didn't care. I told you, I'm the millennial. This sounds bad now, but back then I would quit a job. I'm like, I got enough side hustles. I know enough. Like, I'll figure it out. figure it out.
But you know what? I think that as much as people try to get on millennials, I think that that's one of the things that's about them is that they will figure it out. Whereas, you know, I hate to say, but some of us and some of the people, I'm Gen X, in case people didn't know, Gen X and baby boomers and stuff, some of us are so structured in our thought that we can't see outside of the box. So therefore, if this doesn't work out, we have no idea what's going to happen. And you know, I was going to quit my job, but I could not in my good conscience quit the job without having another job. I just couldn't see it. I lived in, you know, I lived in a big city. It's expensive by myself. And so I was like, I can't do that. And so I had been going on interviews. And when I say going on interviews, I mean, I had been killing it. But the crazy thing was, I would go on interviews at lunchtime. And then I have to go back to work. And I was like, oh my God, this is, and it was just lucky that everything was right there. Well, the job I ended up getting was not right there in the city. So I actually was able to go to that interview and I get that job. And girl, I ended up getting fired.
Oh,
And guess how I got fired? This is the best story ever. My
how?
parents came to visit me in Chicago, and we were at brunch. And for all my fellow Chicagoans, we were at Sweet Maple. And everyone, and those that know me personally know Sweet Maple is my favorite brunch place. So I took my parents, so excited to show them my Sweet Maple. I've taken the day off work so we can hang out in the daytime. And I happened to see that I had missed a call. So I checked my voicemail. That's how I got fired.
Oh, not via voicemail.
Yes, ma'am. Via voicemail.
That was rude.
Right?
Well, I guess I thought it was rude that you were taking interviews on your break, you know. So.
I mean, but I look, I did my work. I was on lunch. It wasn't like I took time out of their day. I was on lunch. This is my time.
Yeah.
So, girl, I was like, wow. So then I was like, do I tell them now or do I wait or do I tell them? So then I just was like, well, that phone call that I missed, I just got fired. My mother was, she was, you know, my mother's a baby boomer. She was like, what? She
No.
I mean, that probably ruined her trip. Whereas me,
Lord.
I was like, weight lifted off my shoulders. I ain't got to lie to these people no more. Why? You know, I got to go to lunch right this second. And, you know, so I was just like.
Look, at least you didn't have to quit, I guess.
And my mother was just like, what are you going to do? I was like, I'll be fine. I'll find a job, you know. And my dad was just, I said, and my dad said, well, Renee, did you go to work on time? I said, Dad, I was early. I turned the lights on. It was a law firm.
Yeah, okay.
I turned the lights on.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I left on time. I mean, I was here early. Why wouldn't I leave on time?
Right.
And I said, Dad, I did exactly what I was supposed to do. And I would go home. He goes, well, that's all I can ask. If you showed up and I mean, never called in sick. If you showed up and you were there on time, you were not late. He's like, well, then you did your job. I said, thank you. And so when they did the little exit interview for unemployment, my former boss actually died way after I had been gone. So may he rest in peace. But his wife was in charge of things, and she, as far as HR, and she said he felt that my heart wasn't in it. I told my dad. My dad's like, but you were on time. I was like, exactly. He goes, well, it wasn't your company. Yes, exactly. I mean, really, how much was my heart supposed to be in it? Like, you know what I mean?
As long as I did my job, right?
It's your business.
Why
It's a job.
Why you worry about my heart? Like,
right, it's a job. So, but I mean, but that, you know what? And it was funny. There was an episode of Oprah actually where a girl stood up and she was like, she was fired, blah, blah, blah. And they told her, they go, please thank them. Go back and thank them. And I never did that. But the crazy thing is that one of the people from the job called me when he was sick and in the hospital and was like, you know, we just wanted to let you know. And I said, oh, okay. But the funny thing is, because I don't be putting people's business in the street, I had never told anybody that what had happened and how I ended up leaving. So, and I guess he didn't tell them either. So he didn't know. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm good. Like, no, I'm, you know, I'll pray for him, but there's nothing, no love lost there that I can go and, I was like, he might choke if I walked in because he knows that what he did was not quite right. No one
Yeah,
knew he fired me via voicemail,
that's crazy.
So yeah, so I was like, no, I'm not going to be going in there. I'm not going to the hospital. And he was just enlightened. He's like, well, I had no idea. Because I wasn't a bad employee. So
Yeah.
you wouldn't have expected me to be fired.
So when you said that you took interviews on your lunch break, it made me think. So I did skip over another like major part. Like while I was in college, I did start my own blog, and so I was doing that like outside of anything work related. With my blog, it was a faith based blog where I would interview entrepreneurs and celebrities just about like their faith and how they got along in their journey, and where they are today. And so I would actually go on my lunch break and I would sit in the car and interview folks. Like I would have like those apps on the phone where you could record the conversation.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I would literally conduct interviews in my car in the parking garage of the law firm, like, and then I would, edit it later. And so it was just that. I think that's also kind of what kept me through the hard times, when I did, because I wanted to leave for a while, but I didn't. I was afraid to because A, like you said, I didn't have anything else set up that was bringing in stable income. And B, unfortunately, I felt like, at the time that was the highest paying job I had ever had. So I'm like,
what if this doesn't happen again?
Yeah. And like, and I'll be transparent and say, like, at the time I was making like $13 an hour. And I'm like, girl, do you know how much, like if I could talk to myself,
Right.
like, girl, you gonna make more than this. Like, you'll be okay. They'll be okay.
Right.
So I'm glad that I trusted my gut and I had the faith to leave when it was time to go. But yeah, so my blog was definitely keeping me through. And essentially once I, kind of had that fire lit beneath me, and after I left the firm, I was using the skills from previous career, choices, and also
put it all together, and you.
Yeah. And with my blog, like, as bloggers, you learn how to build your own website. You learn how to manage your own social media. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to freelance, and I'll do this for other people. And so that's how I was able to earn some extra income. And things quickly changed. In 2016, I had the opportunity to be a speaker at Blogging While Brown, which that was like my first national speaking opportunity.
That's where we met.
Yes.
In DC, right?
Yes, in DC. Yep. So that was my first time at the award ceremony. I presented and all of that, and I had a great time. And literally, as soon as I got back home, my mom, she's in California. She held on to Sydney for me while I was in DC. And while Sydney was in California, once I got home, I said, okay, well, I got like a couple more weeks of freedom, from a kid until he gets back. So I'm going to volunteer more of my time into the community because, with Mike Brown, it was still very heightened and very stressed in St. Louis. And so at this time, I was meeting with different activists and Black-owned business owners and, people with nonprofits in St. Louis. And we were just literally like meeting every week to try to do something better for the city. And days before Sidney came home, I found out about this bookstore, I See Me, and they wanted to do like a flash mob to the store, like, just everyone playing on one day at the same hour to go and rush this store and buy out, as much as they can. Great idea. Unfortunately, I had to work because I was working for a nonprofit at the time. And I couldn't go. So I'm like, dang, I said, well, I still want to go to the store. Like I made it a point to still visit on my own time. And so I said, I'll just wait until Sidney gets back and I'll take him then. So in August of 2016, I took Sidney to the bookstore and he didn't know where we were going. I just told him it was a surprise trip because for whatever reason, I was so excited. And I thought he would be excited about going to a bookstore. Now he says he thought we were going to Dave & Buster's. So there's that. But this bookstore actually changed his life. Dave & Buster's wouldn't have changed his life. So we walked in and it's the only African-American children's bookstore in St. Louis. They have posters up of like spiritual figures, heroes, comic book, you
must make sure that they get this book.
Yes. Civil rights leaders, just anything that you can think of in all facets of Black excellence in literature form. And so it blew my mind because even though I grew up in a predominantly Black area, we didn't have access to literacy like that because resources and funds were low. And then also we got, kind of badgered in the head all the time about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, and like nothing against them, but there are so many other prevalent leaders that we missed out on learning about.
Which
so
we've learned about most recently, thank the Lord.
yeah. So like, but just taking Sidney there for the first time, I thought that it was just going to be an eye opener for him, but it was for me as well. And so I asked the owner, and I battled with myself, like, because I was also a blogger, and I think for most people who are like bloggers or even influencers now, sometimes you just want to be, you don't want to put on a face all the time. And so I said, I owe it to me and Sidney to just be. I don't want to walk in there as Winnie the blogger, but something was like heavy on my back, like, Winnie, capture this moment. And I said, okay, all right, okay. Like I felt like there was like an angel on this side, devil on this side. Like I was really battling within myself. And I finally went up to the store owner and I said, hey, do you mind if I do a Facebook Live video? This was when Facebook Live was very new, and nobody was really going live. This was my first time going live, so I didn't even know what I was doing. I did not have on any makeup. My hair was like all over the place. It was middle of August. I was drenched in sweat, but whatever. So I'm just going to show the store and show Sidney and leave it at that. And so, long story short, I showcased Sidney reading in the store. I was live for maybe 7-8 minutes. Shut it down. Before I even got home, my phone is like, bloop, 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 and it's just going off. And I'm like, what is happening? The video went viral, got over 65,000 views. It's so funny because I wanted to order a book that she didn't have. So I left my number for her to call me when the book came in. So she called me when this video is going viral and I've tagged them. And she said, who are you? And I'm like, ma'am, I don't know. Like, I was like, I got a blog, but my blog ain't pop like this,
Right.
like, and so I'm like, we hit something. And she's like, yeah. And so I asked Sidney, I'm always an entrepreneur at heart. And so I asked Sidney, I said, do you want to have like this 15 minutes of fame, or do you want to do something about it? Because clearly we hit something, like, and we realized that with the city being so stressed and, hiding around the death of Mike Brown, that this was something positive, that was shedding a light on St. Louis. And he said, okay, well, are there any book clubs? And we looked up, we couldn't find anything local specifically for boys. And so we literally just put the pieces together. I'm really good at putting puzzle pieces together. And so I said, okay, you want a book club? You want it to be for boys. Let's make it for your age range because you're trying to make new friends. And he said, and let's focus on African-American literacy because that's what ICME had. And I'm like, perfect, boom. I asked him what he wanted to call it. And he said with the most little innocent voice, Books and Bros. And I was like, that is ugly. Like, I hated the name. I hated it. I was like, that's it? And he was like, yep. I said, okay. And mind you, at the time I was working for a nonprofit that I was working with youth, and I was learning to trust young people's voices and their visions. I said, okay, all right, I'll trust you. Books and Bros it is. And we had our first meetup at ICME. It went really well. We started having more meetups. And on average, we would probably have about 7 kids to come. And, I kept going. And then once we hit February, I was like, oh, crap, it's Super Bowl Sunday. And I said, well, you know what? Football players need to read too. I don't care. We're not pushing this back. And so we had our meetup on Super Bowl Sunday, and only 3 boys showed up. And Sidney was very discouraged. He was sad. He was like, nobody came. I just want to quit. And I said, Sidney, I don't raise quitters. I said, let's just give it one more time. I said, if it doesn't work next month, then we can let it go. And he said, okay. And that next week, I got a notification from Huffington Post, and they're like, a 10-year-old St. Louis boy creates, book club or whatever. And I was like, what? I'm like, this is a lie. I was like, he was not on Huffington Post. And I pulled up their website, and there he was, like, big as day, his picture on their website. And I was like, holy crap. And then, like, Huffington Post is connected to so many other outlets. So then
Right.
other outlets started picking it up. So then there's Ebony Magazine and BET and celebrities were sharing it. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm working at this nonprofit. And I'll never forget, I got a phone call from, we were never actually on the show. Not really sure why, but I'm not going to argue against the
Right.
verse or whatever. But I got a phone call from somebody at the Ellen show and I screamed. I ran out of the office on the phone and
It
I
is
like,
not too late.
it's not.
It's the last season. You gotta look, we got a few months left.
Right. And I ran like, and then when I came back in the office, the kids that I work with, they're like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, they just called me from the Ellen show." And like, he wasn't on there, but he ended up on Steve Harvey
Right.
and
And
CNN Hero.
Oprah spoke to him on Steve Harvey and
Yes. And
mhm.
he was in Oprah's magazine.
Yep.
And so there was a
CNN
lot.
Heroes and then the Marvel thing and
Yes. So that was the most notable thing was him being honored as an official Marvel hero. So yeah, it's been completely life changing. So I work for my son full time. Outside of that, I'm exercising my PR communications muscle. Um, and just really trying to step into this calling. But it's been like, that's why I say I feel like I live like 3 or 4 lives already, and I'm only 33. So that's that. That's the birth of Books and Bros.
but you're doing an amazing job. So yes, this is the website here. If anybody, and they actually have a subscription service now. So they
Yeah.
send books every month.
Yes.
So go to booksandbros.com to check out all that they're doing because they're doing a lot of amazing things. We actually had a comment. LinkedIn is working again. It had stopped for a while. So Ernest, I did see your comment, but she was talking. But thank you so much for watching. Ernest said, "Come on Fox Soul's Black Report to talk about the book club."
Oh, I would
Look,
love
so now
that.
I'll be your publicist. So
Full circle. Full
right.
circle. It's all right.
But but yeah, so this is the website Books and Bros. And so Ernest, thank you so much. And we will definitely make certain that you connect with Winnie. But yeah, it is amazing what you have done. And I remembered meeting you in 2016. I think you were there with your boo, weren't you?
Girl, yes. Like can we
I remembered that. I was like, was she there with a boyfriend?
and that was such that's the regret that I had. Now what I will tell the ladies, do not try to combine a workcation and a vacation, okay? Because it wasn't giving what it was supposed to give. So I should have left him back in St. Louis. But thankfully, we broke up before Books and Bros was even a thing. So there's the Lord.
Realized that because I think you said something on social media or something. I was like, oh, she got rid of him. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
You had to go. There was no alignment. Okay. And
Hey,
it became clear when we were in DC. So that's a lesson learned. So now, with my hubby, because I'm married
right.
now.
Yes.
I told him that we need to go back to DC to redo that trip because I didn't have a good experience with that person. So we
That
gotta
makes perfect sense to me. I think that's
yes.
a great idea. Great idea. But yeah, so I remembered meeting you and then like I said, I'm in the background like following and paying attention to people and that's where I met Eva too. And so when Eva and I got so tight, I'd be like, "Do you see what Winnie's doing?" Da, da, da. Now the funny thing about the Marvel heroes is that my friend Nate's son is also
Mm.
one.
Jaquil,
Yes.
yes.
I met Nate a long time ago in Chicago, and we don't see each other often. But when we do, like a couple years ago, actually, she was at her son was at an event. It was actually right before the world shut down. It was All Star Weekend, and I was there volunteering with Silence the Shame Against Mental Health. Shout out to my big sister Shani Das, who has been on the show twice, I think. But she was doing a panel with Alan Houston, former Detroit Piston, and
Yeah.
also happens to be married to one of my former babysitters. But but yeah, so she was doing a panel with him, and I was volunteering with her. And Jaquil was in the audience, and so Nate was
Mm,
there, and so I introduced her to Shanti and stuff, but yeah,
wow.
he's another young man that like Sidney is just killing it.
Yeah, we've supported Jaquil here since we moved to Atlanta. So we've been in Atlanta for about a year and a half now. But Jaquil had a national day where he was giving back to the community to help homeless
Right.
people. And
He
so
makes bags of
the blessing bags, yeah.
blessing bags for homeless people and hands them out. So,
Yeah, so he actually shipped us some like boxes so we can kind of put together some bags with him, like around the same time of day.
right.
And then we distribute them here in Atlanta with another nonprofit that advocates for homelessness as well. So we're getting the kids together and
Yeah.
getting the missions together.
Yes. And then Sydney, of course, was recently in the Huffington Post article with one of
Yes,
my favorite people, Miss Eden Wilson, who
yes,
we are giving blessings to today. She has her first rhythmic gymnastics competition since moving to Chicago. The pandemic had stopped her for 3 years from competing. Yeah, so we're very excited, and I know it's going to go very well for her. But yeah, so then he was in that article, and I read it. That was fabulous, just lovely. She
yes.
has raised such a nice young man, such a nice young man.
Thank
I'm just
you.
like, wow, and I still can't believe he's 16.
Me either. I think the baby is actually distracting me from that. It's like he'll make comments and like his voice, is very deep, and I'm. But that's why I keep coffee. I
Right.
keep wine. Whatever. I don't mix the two, but I think about it sometimes. So, um,
So I know that I know over the years you've had to have done some sort of mentorship or just speaking to young people. So what do you tell them about just life in general, or just, making sure that, because like I said, my hashtag is live life you deserve. And I am so sick of these people being like, I can't do that. Can't is just not in my vocabulary. And
yeah,
especially with the help of the lovely internet. Oh my God.
yeah,
There is
yeah.
no such thing as can't, or I don't know how.
Let me tell you something. I was raised by a mother who, before we even had Google, she was like, she had a bookshelf full of encyclopedias and books from her college days, and she pointed to the bookshelf and she said, "Look it up." And I'm like,
Exactly. Or my mother say, "Well, we'll go to the library tomorrow."
right, right, that too. So I'm like, but mom, you know the answer. So I would just say, of course, use the resources around you. At this point, like you said, they're at your fingertips. You can look up anything on the internet. And if you don't have access to the internet, libraries are still very well and alive. And so they have access to the internet for you, because I know that in some areas they don't have,
Right.
the everything. I'll also say that you're never too young to accomplish your dreams. I just talked to,
Never.
yeah,
Never.
I just talked to a young lady last week. She's 16 in St. Louis, specifically the Dalewood area for those who are watching from St. Louis. And she wants to publish her own children's book to advocate around colorism. So she doesn't like the fact that lighter skinned girls feel this way about themselves or darker skinned girls feel this way about themselves. She wants everyone to feel comfortable in their skin. And I sat on the phone with her and I told her from A to Z how she could publish her own book as a teenager. Like you're never too young. There's ways that you can get it done now, like no matter what. So I would just say, and even Sidney says it, I think the best thing that you can have is just someone by your side. So, Sidney and I have been a great team. If your parent unfortunately can't support you, find someone in your neighborhood who can, or someone at your school.
Or
Um,
find someone online. You'd be
yeah,
amazed.
yeah,
You'd
yeah.
be amazed if you follow and do the right things. You'd be amazed who would actually respond to you. And I mean, my whole thing is no is next opportunity. I learned that from my friend Michael Conley. That's what it stands for. No is next opportunity.
Hmm.
So if they say no, then you find someone else, or if they don't respond, you find someone else. But I literally have done so much because I just send a message. I don't care who the person is. They're just a human being, just like I'm a human being. And I'll
Yeah.
send them a message and I'll say, blah, blah, blah. Somebody sent me a message recently, and this is so funny. And I responded, and they accused me of being a bot. I
How did
was
you
like, I
respond?
go, what? I forgot what I said, but I mean, I said something. I had put an emoji. I can't remember, but I looked at this and was like, "Oh my God, Alicia, they think that this is one of those automatic responses." And so
Probably
I
because
said something.
You were too friendly. That's probably the problem.
Maybe. And so then I responded back and was like, what is that supposed to mean? Because it said something like, well, that's nice for I was like,
And
and
meanwhile,
then
they was probably a bot.
girl, then he was just apologizing. He's a filmmaker and he wanted me to help. Oh, he wanted me to introduce him to somebody that I know. That's
No,
it.
I'm a bot. No, I'm just kidding. No,
Right.
Oh my
It was
goodness.
too funny, but that's what I'm saying. Like, people are shocked when I respond, and I'm like, I mean, you sent the message, I will respond.
Yeah, no, and
But
I would also just say, like, do it even when people don't understand.
right.
Because, like we said earlier in the interview, I left jobs and that was completely against, my mom's moral code. My brother's like a father figure for me. And he's like, absolutely not. Like, why are you, like my uncle tried to get me to work for the post office. I don't want to work for the post office. Like, that's just not me. So, like I was literally the only person that saw the vision full out, even before I even knew what that would completely, consist of. And now, they're all very proud of me and they're proud of the work, that
Right.
I've done, and they're like, okay, now you're the one that's going to be, the wealthy one in the family. All right. So it's worth it in the end.
Exactly. And my sister, my executive producer, is watching. She said, "You're never too old either," and she is absolutely right.
Yeah. You're never too old.
Now I know that you have written some books. Now, are they out yet?
So I self-published a book. It's very St. Louis. Like, the title of it is very St. Louis. But it's called Mugs Could Never, and it's 23 affirmations to combat against anxiety and depression. So I wrote it at the top of 2020, as soon as everybody was on lockdown,
Mhm.
because I just felt like there was so much, like, confusion, and we just didn't know what was going on and we didn't know what to expect. So it's really like a coffee book style, book that you can just kind of flip through and get some motivation from each page. I've gotten a lot of rave reviews from it. A lot of women specifically have said that it's helped them to just get out of their own head for a second. I touch on things like, self-love, prayer, just really combating against the thoughts that you can have against yourself. So it is on Amazon. Even if you just look up Winnie Caldwell, then you'll see it underneath my name. But it's called Mugs Could Never, because that's like a St. Louis slang. And I have
Okay,
like
I didn't know this.
yeah, and I have like a coffee mug like on the cover, so it's like really playing off of words. But
Gotcha.
yeah, and then of course I've worked on the book with Sidney, his
Right.
first self-published book, Cool Bros Read, which is also on Amazon.
Yeah, so I will put links in the YouTube description box to those books. Um, and you need, look, you need a book, you need a movie, you need.
Look, that's actually a dream of mine, is to have a movie. Like, people keep asking me, like, when
No,
are you
but you should have one.
yeah.
My executive producers just said you should have a podcast.
Oh,
Um,
thank
so
you.
my sister, this is her first introduction to you. She didn't meet you like I did, and I just told her, I was like, Winnie is going to help me. She's going to help
Yeah.
me. But my sister knows that I'm overwhelmed. And but you definitely need to have a book. And I was going to say, at 33 years old, you are a lot wiser than people at 45.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's really awesome. And kudos to your mother, obviously. But you have really, I mean, which is why your son is turning out the way he is because you have done such a phenomenal job. Like, you are really just, I mean, way wiser than your years, because there's a lot of 33-year-olds. I'm just like, oh my God.
Well, you know what? And I don't I don't mean to, like, close out on a heavy note, but I do think that I should probably mention this, especially for someone if they're younger or just someone that needs a little bit of extra push. I had found out when I was 21. I've never met my biological father, and I found out that he essentially, how can I put this? There was an attack against my mother when she was pregnant with me, that caused for him to be in jail, essentially for life. And so I found the actual police report when I was 21, which was scary. And so I found it, I read it, it was heartbreaking. And knew I found out about like the attack when I was younger, when I was like around 8 years old. That's a story for the movie or for the
Right.
book. But when I found out about it when I was 8, I didn't find out as much in detail, but I knew enough to know that I was very angry with him, so I didn't even want to meet him anymore. And B, I knew that at 8 years old, for some odd reason, I knew if that happened to my mom when she was pregnant with me, there's a reason why I'm here. Like that's the resignation that I had in my spirit at just the young age of 8 years old. So like even though I wasn't really thinking about it, going through elementary school, middle school,
Right.
high school, once I became of age to make choices for my life, I knew that even though things got hard, that this wasn't the end. I'm like, because if I was supposed to be taken out, it would have happened before I would made it even, to this earth.
Yeah.
So I would just kind of use that as some inspiration for someone else to say, just keep pushing through. Even with the opportunity with Marvel, I was battling like anxiety attacks and depression so bad because entrepreneurship had gotten so hard. And when they contacted me, they did not say that they were from Marvel. It was just some random white guys saying that they wanted to film a documentary with me and my son. And I was like, I don't have time to play. Like, who are y'all? What's going on? Get straight to it. Is it money or what? Like, I was not, it was a no nonsense time for me. And, once we signed some documents, then they were able to get me some more information. And then after that, life turned out, very well. So I know it's hard right now for a lot of people, and a lot of people are trying to figure things out, but I just want to say don't give up.
Right. And I was going to also say her son is also a speaker. So she does a phenomenal job herself, but her son is actually a paid speaker as well,
Mhm.
and does a really phenomenal job as well. So what's next for you guys?
So actually what's next is Sidney is in the middle of a publishing deal. So we did sign him on when I was pregnant. We got him a publishing deal with the company. So he has another book coming out later this year. What I can say is that it's from a young adult's perspective, a book about African American books. So I think it'll be great for educators, for teachers, anyone working with kids, because we would get questions a lot like, my son does not like to read. What are you getting these boys to read?
Right, right.
Like that are interesting them into literacy. I mean, even with educators, especially if you're not a person of color and you don't know where to go to find books to help kids see themselves, this book will introduce that. So it's like its own bibliophile, if you will, of stories that people can escape in and support, Black authors at the same time.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, ma'am. You have been amazing. And kudos to you for just always listening to yourself and saying, well, no, this doesn't feel right. This isn't right. And just moving on to the next thing. And thankfully, you are stepping into what you should have been doing. Uh,
I'm always running, ain't I? But
right.
I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah.
You got
So,
me.
like I said, kudos to you for really paying attention because you're doing a whole lot, and even that one Sydney is like changing so many lives, and it's because of you that he is able to do that. Because I know tons of children are reading, boys and girls, and getting excited about reading because they are seeing themselves in books.
Yeah,
Because Books and Bros, the books in their box are books that have Black children in them. So
yeah,
they reflect the people reading the books, which is
yeah,
important. If you go to the bookstore or the library and you see nothing that you can relate to, why in God's name would you want to read it?
yeah. Oh
You
my
know?
gosh, I had the cutest moment with my 7 month old. She's taking a nap right now, but that we have a book that it's like a baby book, so it's just a
Uh-huh.
picture book. But I was flipping through it, like just showing her. I'm like, this is a baby boy, this is a baby girl. And then when I got to the third page, there was a mirror, and it was the cutest moment because as soon as I showed it to her, she did this biggest smile, and I feel like that's a testament within itself because like she saw herself literally, and that just made her light up. So it was the cutest moment. I'm like, you know what? That's it right there. That's what every
Yep.
kid needs to feel when they're opening up a book.
Exactly. Exactly. Which is why No Renee You Allergic that has two little Black girls and a Black boy in it. So
Yeah. And we need that.
Yes. And so, yes, everyone, I have my book, No Renee, You Are Allergic.com. You can go and check out the book. But thank you so much, Winnie. And next week, hopefully, we will have another amazing woman. Um, Probably not from St. Louis. I'm running out of folks, but but anyway, thank you so much. And everyone, have a great, oh, you know what I need to mention. So this week was, because it is Women's Her Story Month, it was National Women and Girls HIV AIDS Awareness Day on Thursday the 10th. I did a really amazing show on Black Doctor with 3 women that are living with HIV. That's what they like to call it, living with HIV. One of them was 35 years positive. She is 60 something years old. Then there was 2 younger ladies. One had been at it for 22 years and the other one for like 10 or so, 15 or something like that. But they were so amazing. And if you can, you should go check that out. It is on my channel, Ask Dr. Renee, of course. It's the video right before this one. It was so amazing. And they were so amazing. Their stories, they told their stories of how they contracted and everything. It was very enlightening. But unfortunately, while we are going through a pandemic, we still do have HIV AIDS to think about. And but there's so many ways to treat yourself now that it's really important that we find out what's going on, find out your status, so then you can get in care, and then you don't have to worry about. You can live a long, 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 long life. Look at Magic Johnson, my fellow Spartan. Go green. But yeah, I wanted to say that this Thursday we're going to talk about colorectal cancer because it is Colorectal Awareness Month, as well as all the other things going on this month. And needless to say, colon cancer has been affecting Black people more than it has affected others. So we are going to talk about that on blackdoctor.org this Thursday, 6 o'clock Eastern. So I will see you guys next time. Bye.